Hi, welcome back. In today's lesson, we're going to start our new unit on economics, and we're going to talk more about ways in which you can start thinking more like an economist. We're going to look at the 7 principles of economic thinking and gear up to begin our discussion of economic systems later in this unit. So make sure you're in your interactive notebook and you're following along. All right, so we're on page 2 of your interactive notebook. And again, today we're talking about what is economics? I'm sure some of you, the first thing you think of when you hear the term economics is money. That's 9 times out of 10 the answer I get if I ask somebody, what's the economy all about? Yes, it does deal with money, but there's a lot of other factors. So we're going to break down economics to its barest bones and talk more about what it really is, because it is just more than money, or it is more than just money. So our essential question, we are going to start off each day with an essential question just to kind of focus our attention and focus our learning. So today we want to talk about what is economics and how can you think more like an economist? Because you might not know this, but you probably already do. So economics at its base root is all about choices. That's it. If you were to look up the formal definition of economics, it's going to say in there something about decision-making and choices. That's it. Now, later in the game, money does come into play because we do make choices with how we spend or use our money. There's where money comes in. So basically, in a world, all of our resources are limited. This is something, or the principle known as scarcity. Our resources are limited, but we have unlimited wants and needs. There's all kinds of things out there that you either want to be doing, want to be purchasing, need to be doing, or need to be purchasing. Economics is all about the study of how do we satisfy those those unlimited wants and needs with our very limited resources. That's the job of an economist. That's it. I know, crazy. It's not that crazy. All right. So let's talk about the economy versus economics. What is the economy? A formal definition of the economy is an area, usually a nation, where there is production, distribution, and consumption of limited resources. So what we just said, that's an economy. And in economics, we're going to study micro and macroeconomics. So what's the difference between those two? Well, if you don't know, micro means small. If you ever had micro machines, they were big when I was a kid. I might be aging myself. Micro machines were like little itty bitty cars. Micro is small. So microeconomics is going to be the study of small economics, meaning individuals, individual businesses, individual households. Looking at them. So it might be like you, could be you and your family. That's microeconomics. Macroeconomics means big, or macro means big. So it's big economics. Basically, we take all of the households, all of the businesses, all of the individuals and lump them together. And it's basically how the economy as a whole, or a nation, as the whole nation's economy, how it functions. And then we can compare it to other nations. So those are the big 2 differences, because we always get the question in economics, what's the difference between micro and macro? But those are coming later. So let's talk about the 7 principles of economic thinking. And as we go through this, you're going to start to think, oh, okay, I do that. So again, we're trying to think more like an economist. And again, like I said, some of you may already do this. You just might not realize it, but you do. So our first economic principle, scarcity forces trade-offs. So again, as I mentioned before, scarcity is the idea that we have unlimited wants and needs, but we only have limited resources. So a good one to think of is time. Every single person, whether you are a bajillionaire or you have 2 pennies to scratch together, you only get 24 hours in a day. You cannot buy more hours. You just cannot do it. It is a limited resource. There are unlimited things that you want to do. Right now, you might not want to be watching this. I know, it's okay. I understand. There's other things you want to be doing, but you made the decision, good job, to watch this. And so you're essentially trading off your time. A trade-off is what you give up to make a choice. Usually there's a whole slew of things that you're going to give up. So you chose to watch this. You could be sleeping. You could be gaming. You could be TikToking, if that's a verb. You could be tweeting. You could be texting. You could be, there's all types of different things. All right. So, but you gave that up. So how does scarcity force these trade-offs? Since all of our resources are scarce, people and societies have to make choices that are going to force them to make trade-offs. Because you made a decision, you're trading other things off. There's a common concept known as there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. That's the principle that refers to this idea that there's always going to be a trade-off. People might say, oh yeah, you can get free lunch. Yes, but there's something that you had to do in order to get that free lunch. There's really no such thing as a free lunch. And somebody out there is paying for that free lunch, whether it be the school, a friend, the government, whatever. So technically it's not free. Principle number 2, cost versus benefits. One big thing to note, anytime we talk about cost in this class, we might not necessarily be talking about monetary costs, like physical, it costs $10. A cost can be like a trade-off. It can be a con. Cost and benefits, synonyms for those could be pros and cons. So cost and benefits, a cost is going to be what you spend, again, not necessarily money, what you spend to make a choice. You could be spending time, you could be spending resources, you could be spending money. Benefits are going to be what you gain as a result of making a choice. Maybe it's time, maybe it's money, maybe it's resources. So the cost versus benefits principle. When people make a choice, it's pretty much always because they think, whether it's a conscious effort or maybe subconscious, that your benefit is going to outweigh the cost. You're making the best decision to get the best out of it. You want the benefit. You don't want the cost. You want to give up as little as possible. You want to get more out of it. So a cost benefit analysis, you list out the costs and benefits of a decision and then you make the choice. Sometimes people call this like a pro and con list. This deciding whether, you want to do something. Okay, well, what's going to be the pros of it? What's going to be the cons of it? Same idea, cost benefits. So some of you might do that, not necessarily going to do it, but think about this class. The idea of watching this video. You might do this, list it all out. What's going to happen if I watch the video? I'm going to gain the knowledge. I'm going to get a good grade. This is going to happen. What's the cost of it? Well, I'm not going to get a good grade. I'm not going to have the knowledge. So on and so forth. You get my drift. Probably not doing that all the time, but some people like to write it down. Number 3, thinking at the margin. If you want to think about margins in a paper, teachers might say, like, have a 1-inch margin. Your margin is the outside edge or a border. So when we think at the margin, we're thinking at the edge of it. So we have marginal benefit and marginal cost. Marginal benefit is what you gain by adding 1 unit of something. Marginal cost is what you lose by adding 1 unit of something. Again, that unit could be a unit of time, a unit of money, some sort of a resource. So what do we mean by thinking at the margin? You want to consider your marginal cost and your marginal benefit when you think about making a decision. So for example, consider this. What would be the marginal cost and benefit of sleeping in for 1 extra hour? Depends on that extra hour, what time of the day it is. But for example, your marginal benefit, you're going to get more sleep. Woohoo! I love sleep. I want more of it. So, waha, you got it. Extra hour of sleep. What's the marginal cost though? Think about all those things you gave up. This is just one example. There's a whole ton of them. You missed an opportunity to work. Possibly you could have gone in and got an extra shift, which means you could have made more money. So that's your marginal cost. So you want to think about that when you consider a decision. Number 4, incentives matter. An incentive is something that motivates a person to do something in a certain way. For example, maybe you have a deal with your parents that if you make honor roll this semester and every A you get, you'll get $50. Wish my parents would do that. They never did that. But maybe there's kids out there. That's a motivation. That's definitely going to be incentive to work hard. If you think about it, you got 4 classes, you get A's, that's $200. Dang. So that's a huge incentive. Incentives do matter because it's going to motivate our behavior, whether we realize it or not. In general, people respond to incentives in predictable ways. You're going to do more to get more. That's what you want. We also have something known as opportunity cost. Your opportunity cost is your second alternative, the next best thing. What's the next best thing you could get, the next best thing you could earn, the next best thing you could be doing? We'll talk more about opportunity cost later. Number 5, trade makes people better off. We will have a whole unit on international trade, but for right now, let's keep it pretty basic. Trade is basically when you have a voluntary exchange of goods. It could be with money, or it could just be, hey, give me this, I'll give you that. I'll trade you my PB&J for your turkey sandwich. Something easy like that. Or you could say, we're going to trade 10 cents for a pencil. You traded money for a good. Trade makes people better off because we trade when it's inefficient to make everything that we need. Think about it. If you tried to make every single thing that you need, it's time consuming. You might not have all the resources. It's tough. All right. Think about with what the life we live right now with COVID. There were people when COVID first started, they were afraid of contracting the disease. I'm not going to shop at the grocery store anymore. I'm going to start a garden. Depending on where you live, that might not be feasible. Wintertime, plants usually don't grow. It's difficult to do. So sometimes it's very difficult and inefficient to make everything that you possibly need. So an example also could be, let's go back to our pencil scenario. If you let's say that you are a pencil pouch maker. You make pencil pouches and your friend makes pencils. You strike up a deal that says, hey, I'll give you some pencils if you give me a pencil pouch. You made a trade. You both traded for what each person needed, and you're better off. He doesn't have to make pencils. You don't have to make pouches. Trade allows for certain people or for countries to specialize and then trade for what they need. Specializing is you take one thing, you make it, you're really good at it, and you trade with another country. Number 6, markets coordinate trade. When we talk about a market, we're not necessarily talking about like the grocery store. I know some people call a grocery store a market. A market is a place where buyers and sellers trade or they do business. So markets facilitate trade the way in which they do it is that in a marketplace with limited government intervention, meaning the government kind of stays back, buyers and sellers are free to conduct trade. The sellers can set prices, they can create their own products, and then the buyers kind of say sometimes it's an invisible conversation. They can also kind of dictate the price. The way in which they do that is if the price is too high, they're not going to buy it. They're not buying it. The seller's going to say, ooh, I think people want this product, but it's too high. Let me bring the price back down. In this type of marketplace, the buying and selling of goods and services is naturally efficient. When the government kind of takes a step back and lets the economy run itself, usually it's more efficient. However, that leads to the possibility of the market kind of controlling people or taking advantage. So sometimes we do need some government involvement. There is a famous economist, Adam Smith. We'll talk more about him later in this semester. He argued that there was this invisible hand that went over the economy. And it kind of was that invisible conversation that I talked about that guided buyers and sellers to make the right choices, to do the right thing, and let the economy hum along without government intervention. Last but not least, we have future consequences matter. The future matters. So why do future consequences matter? When we make decisions, we are affecting the effects or consequences are far-reaching. A choice that we make today is going to impact, or it may impact, us or other people in the long run. So you really have to be conscious in the choices that you're making, and again, think about what's going to happen in the future. So again, today we're thinking more like an economist. Again, you may have kind of said a few things like, oh, I do that. Oh, I've done that before. So now that you're thinking more like an economist, in our future lessons, we'll kind of hit back on these and we'll talk more about the economic systems. Thanks for paying attention, and I'll see you next time.